Hi, my name is Robert Dietrich, and I'm doing my report on George Washington for my EDU 270 class. Who was George Washington as a president? George Washington was born on February 22nd, 1732. He was born into a wealthy family. His dad was a planner. He had a body of knowledge from his high level of education as a Virginia gentleman. He pursued an two intertwined interests: military arts and Western expansion. On the left here, we see a sign of an actual poster of at one of his houses when he was growing up. He would have had three houses that they stayed at from time to time. Washington's childhood. He was the first child of Augustine Washington and the son of Mary Ball Washington, which was his father's second wife. He was born on their Pope's Creek ranch in Westmoreland, Virginia, which would have been something like a summer home for the Washingtons. His father was very wealthy, and because of this, George was always raised with probably the greatest education of the time. Washington had a great career as a young soldier. He became lieutenant colonel and fought in the first skirmishes of the French and Indian War. In a legendary story, he escaped 4 bullets that went through his coat. Miraculously, he was unharmed, but the horses that he was riding and the man that he was actually riding with to defend were all shot. He, because of this, his men always saw him right off the bat as a legendary war general. Washington as an American rebel, in the time between the French and Indian War and the American Revolution, Washington spent most of his time as a farmer near Mount Vernon. He, like other planners of the time, had many issues with British merchants and a lot of the regulations that they were putting on a lot of his crops and so forth. Throughout the period of the French and Indian War to the American Revolution, Washington was always known as someone who resisted against the mother country of Britain and the oppression that they were putting down on them. Washington as a commander in the Second Continental Congress came together in Philadelphia in May of 1775. One of the Virginia delegates was elected the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army on July 3rd, 1775. He took command of an ill-trained group of troops and embarked on what was to be a very grueling 6 years fighting with these troops. He took basically townspeople and turned them into great fighters that really held off a lot of the British troops. Washington's role in the Constitution, he was absolutely crucial leading up to the Constitutional Convention. He was, very famously known as one of the first people to speak outright about the problems he had with the Articles of Confederation. He saw it as sort of a temporary fix and not what we should base our nation on. When the Constitution was ratified, the Electoral College unanimously named George Washington president. Washington was, like I said, one of the first to realize that the Articles just weren't doing it. And, one of his main points he had about the Constitution was that we needed to protect states' rights, and the protection of such rights were at the utmost importance to the new government. He saw what happened with the British and all the power they had coming from, the high royals, and how little the power the people had. And he said he just went the opposite direction with that. During the French Revolution as a president, it broke out under his presidency, and he was faced with a serious turning point because two of his main men, both Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton, were at odds with each other. Jefferson, being the Secretary of State, was very French biased. Hamilton, on the other hand, was a British royal before the Revolution, so they both had very close ties. Very famously, Washington took the middle ground in this and refused to really back either side in the war, and because of this, probably kept us out of a lot of personal political trouble. Um, yeah, like I said, Washington was elected unanimously in 1978 and again in 1792, and he's the only president to ever be elected unanimously. It happened twice. When he was elected, James Adams took the role of vice president. Um, Throughout Washington's presidency, he was constantly voicing his fears that he saw our government moving to a two-party system where basically the end result was going to be you're going to have you're going to have two extremes, the right and the left, just constantly fighting each other and putting a gridlock in the system. And he said that was just everything we needed to fear in our system. It was the one thing that could bring it down. In Washington's farewell address, he addressed these concerns and urged that long-term alliances would be a huge mistake to our government. I have listed here a bunch of really famous quotes. The one I really like the most here is the one on the bottom, that few men have the virtue that withstand the highest bidder. And this is just crucial to our politics system today. You see all these politicians and the corporate America buying into our politics today, and Washington saw this, very wisely, very early, before even capitalism had even been set up. He knew this was going to be a problem with our political system. The second quote we see here is it just voices Washington's want and need for the abolishment of slavery. He's one of the first real American politicians who was against slavery and spoke openly about it. He died of a throat infection on December 14th, 1799, and for months the nation mourned the death of such a great man.